second fundamental, which is that everything is temporal or time dependent.
When we enter this model where items are unique and in the subject of the, or kind of in the context of the merchant, items might have been out a few times as part of a rental, or they might have come in as a term of, as a buyback, but they've gone through a more complex and dynamic article life cycle. So they might have gone through multiple inspections, multiple grading processes, multiple rentals. So you kind of start to accumulate a timeline or table of events for that specific item. And all of these events have certain information that is valuable. And it's valuable in terms of it helps you, and some of these events might also be in the future. So if you get a future booking for an item, that event might be something that happens maybe in a month. So that table of events has a lot of monetary value in it because it tells you what's the utilization, what's the availability of this item, and it tells you a history in terms of inspection and maintenance. So if you want to do profitability analysis of an individual item or aggregately over your whole operation, those tables that store these events are the source of that. And that's why in Recommerce, this aspect of temporality is how we call it, or the time dependence, or this kind of timetable is so important in many aspects.
And I guess it's also bringing a little complexity also into the software or commerce OS world, where you might want to actually check the status on this certain point of time rather than having like always checking like the real time, like what's happening now in my inventory. You might want to see what's happening in a week.
Exactly. So you start to be in an operational world where you have, well, like to simplify, if I want to optimize my business, I have questions and I look for answers for those questions from a commerce OS or whatever system. And in terms of Recommerce, many of your questions tend to be such that they're questions about the future. Can I give this item for a customer in 2 weeks of time? Is it available? That's a question that has a time component built into it. How many times have this item been used at the end of this season? If I want to estimate the value of my inventory at the end of a rental season, or for example, how much money I've spent in repairing this item. So all of these questions have a certain temporal or time dependent component in it, and that kind of that guides quite a lot the needs behind the system that we're also catering towards. Maybe to simplify, many commerce systems help you answer questions, and it tends to be so that in Recommerce, many of the questions that you would like to ask have a temporal or time-dependent aspect to it, or a variable in those questions.
And probably also like when you're looking at back and want to analyze like how did this season go, it might be that the same items are used for multiple seasons, so you want to have a snapshot of, hey, this pair of sporting equipment or something produced this amount of revenue, and maybe even do some calculations like how much of the maintenance and everything happened during a period of time.
And I think a kind of a sanity check of when these kind of capabilities might be useful come to play, or every time you kind of start to think about, I need to understand a life cycle of something better, that usually means that you're looking for a solution that helps you understand that time dependency, what has happened and might happen in the future. So recording what has happened, that's kind of keeping log of stuff. And then the more you keep log of stuff in a granular level, the better software is at kind of looking forward and forecasting what might happen. There are kind of future data points that we can be super certain of. If you get a booking in, for example, for a rental, if you get a booking in 2 months in advance, we can be quite certain that that data point will happen then. But we can also look backwards into that log that has happened and try to estimate that even though some events have not yet happened, based on the data, we can be pretty certain that they will happen. Skiing season will be at the same time this year also, so we can start to forecast demand, for example, based on the log that you've had. And the more granular the data has been recorded, and thanks to software, you don't have to yourself handle all of the complexities, but the more granular data you have, the more granular forecasts you can have of the future.
And that probably also can help you, for example, plan maintenance. So let's say that you get data that, hey, this item breaks down after 10 rentals. So then it might, if you get that data point somewhere, you might want to maybe service it before it actually breaks down, maybe after 8 rentals on average. So
definitely, and it might be also that you need to inspect something after every 10th. Maybe it's a regulation thing. If you do I don't know, zip lines, you probably want to have some kind of a security measurement where after X amount of usage or X hours of usage, you need to kind of check that whether it's safe to use still.
When it's temporal and there are events, then you also have that log that you can kind of go back to and make sure that everything is in order. And
yeah, it's kind of an auditable history of everything. And that's also how it connects to Recommerce, maybe, that if you want to turn this inflow of product returns or buyback or whatever into resellable items, you probably also wanted a little bit of an audit on what happened in between of that item entering your ownership and before it gets sold out or restocked to be sold out. So the inspection process, who did it, what did they do, how long did it take, was there costs connected to those. Some of those might be internal, or it might be a third-party partner, but you need to log that aspect both from business perspective and then just like almost like legal covering your ass perspective, that if something doesn't work out, you might want to go to the audit logs and say that, well, we have the log that says that we did all of these things, that this is just like a unhappy accident, unfortunately, but we have a process in place where we made sure every item has gone through these inspection processes.